Welcome to the Wake Up and Lead podcast. I am your host, Hampton Dorch, and today I'm going to be talking about a lifelong struggle of mine. And the reason I'm doing this is hopefully to impact somebody today to not make some of the mistakes that I have, and then also for some accountability for myself to hopefully grow in this area. It's something that I feel like as I look back over my life, there's been this pattern, and at times I've gotten better, but at the same time, it's something that I just don't want to be characterized by. And what that is not finishing strong. Not finishing strong. Hang on, let me fix this microphone here. So there's a Bible verse, 1 Corinthians 9:24. And if you're not a Christian, this is not going to be like all about this Bible verse, but I'm just going to start with this. It says, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize." And I know that at some level this could be a little bit taken out of context, but sometimes I feel like I start the race running for the prize and then I kind of drift off or I kind of coast. And I'll give you a few examples in my life as to where I've done that. Charlie Sharble, shout out to you. One of my best friends, hang out with him all the time. We run together a lot. When I moved to his school in middle school, he and I ran together a lot. And throughout middle school and high school, we kind of went back and forth. Like, maybe sometimes I was faster, sometimes he was faster, depending on the events. But there was this cross country race in middle school, and there was actually this picture. Charlie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We had this race out in Liberty Park. It was a cross country race, and I had won, I think, all of these races up to this point. And out of nowhere, I think I just kind of expected that I would win. And literally at the last second, I didn't even know, I was kind of jogging through the finish line to win first place. Charlie passes me and beats me. There's a picture of it. It is legendary, but it's kind of sad thinking back on it. Love you, Charlie. But that was like one of the first times that I was like, oh, I definitely had more in the tank where I could have pushed a little bit harder and, I thought I was going to win. And so I was just kind of saying, okay, what's the minimum that I have to do to win? And then I didn't win. So that's the first example. And a lot of these are going to be sports, but I'll get into other ones as well. Number 2, I had the starting spot at shooting guard in 7th and 8th grade on my middle school basketball team. Like at the beginning of the year, the coach, when he built the first starting lineup, I'm in it for probably the first and second game. And then by the end of the season, I lose it. And maybe it was that other players got a lot better, but I lost it. It's almost like I start strong and then kind of fall off a little bit. Same thing happened on one of my soccer teams. I played up. I was in 7th grade and I made it on the 8th grade team and I had the starting spot by the end of the season, lost it. And then when it comes to track, I ran a lot of track growing up. There were times where I would get to the last 100 meters and I'm one of the faster sprinters. I was like a middle distance runner. And so I had more sprint speed than most people, but I would get to the end and I knew I had more in the tank. I feel like a couple times I would say, yeah, if someone had a gun to my head, I know I could have gone faster. And it's like, okay, that's not an excuse. Like, then why don't you? Why don't you give it your all? So those were some sports references there. Outside of sports reference, this one is common with guys, unfortunately. I would say with my now wife, Erica, when we first started dating, it was kind of all about the chase. So I worked really hard in the beginning, to make her feel like I really cared about her and to do really sweet things for her. And then once I knew that we were super serious, it was like, okay, now I can coast. Obviously I've fixed that, but there were periods of that there. Excuse the language here, but half-assing things around my house now that I'm married. I can't tell you the amount of times that my wife has lovingly and kindly said, Hampton, do things right the first time. Whether I'm hanging something on the wall, whether I'm doing something on the back deck, whether I'm building a toy for Mary Collins, do things right the first time. Whether I'm washing clothes outside, it's like, take a little bit more time to make sure that that white nice shirt isn't getting thrown in the dryer so you don't ruin it. It's almost like I'm like, what's the minimum amount I have to do to get this done? And so I'm not doing things at a high quality, and I'm doing things maybe I start strong, but I'm not really finishing well. And then the most recent one, and this one is pretty painful, is my sales role. I mean, I'm not a failure. It's not like anyone's ticked off of me at work. I've sold a good bit this year, and by the time this comes out, I should be officially done with it. But at the beginning of this year, I technically got promoted to director of customer success at my company, and I've been on the sales team for 4 years. In order to officially move into that role, I needed to hit a certain sales number. And on paper, it looked like everything was going to be lined up for me to kind of coast through the finish line and hit my sales number and move into my new role. And so looking back in January, if I would have known where I was now, and by the time this recording comes out again, I should be good, then I would have said, like, what do I have to do to guarantee that I finish well? Like, I think that if a lot of these things went really smoothly, like it looked like they were going to on paper, like deals that I had and opportunities that I had, then I was going to be good. And so I was like, oh, I'm good. And so because I kind of let my foot off the gas, a couple things fell through the cracks, and then I'm left a little bit behind where I need to be. And so this is just something that I want to be honest with anyone listening today, that I have struggled following through. It's less follow through because I'm pretty good at like getting tasks done, but I think I struggle with finishing well, finishing strong with things that are a little bit like long-term projects, if you will. So I started asking the question, why? Like, why do I do this? I think part of it is I care a lot about what people think of me. And so it's almost like, okay, let me go all out to prove myself. And then when I prove myself and I get the girl, when I get the starting spot, when I get the promotion, it's like, okay, we're good. I know in the back of my mind that if I need to do the work in order to get something, I can do it. And so because I've proven it, then I can let off the gas. Maybe that's why. Part of it could be a little bit of self-preservation when I think back to some of the athletics, especially when I would get to the last 100 meters, even though I know I had more in the tank, it was going to hurt really, really bad. And so I didn't want to have to just give it my all, like because it would hurt a little bit. Fear of failure as well. What if I give it my all? What if I leave it all out there and I still don't win? Well, then I don't have an excuse. So I've talked about that before as well. The difference between a growth and the fixed mindset. So a growth mindset is someone that is obsessed with getting uncomfortable, is okay with failure, seeks and tries new things. They want to learn. Someone with a fixed mindset is obsessed with natural talent. They want to stay in the comfort zone. So for example, when I look back to track in 8th grade, humbly, I was amazing at track. I didn't lose a race. And so, but I also probably never ran a single race 100%. I probably went about 90% in all of them. What I would do is I would run behind the person winning the race, and then the last 100 meters, I would just sprint by him and win every time. It was awesome. I peaked in 8th grade. But then like when I got to high school and I was a freshman and I was still like one of the best, but I wasn't the best. I was, 14 running against some 18-year-olds. I would get to that last 100 meters and I just wouldn't give it my all, I guess. And it looked like I was going hard, but I felt like I always had some left in the tank. Or I've told this story many times in school growing up. I was not the best academically. I wasn't unintelligent, but in the back of my mind, I knew that if I studied as hard as I possibly could, if I worked as hard as I could, if I left it all out there, I still probably wouldn't be the best. And if I'm not the best, then I'm not going to try my hardest. And by not trying my hardest, that gives me an opportunity to make an excuse or to have a reason for not winning. But in the back of my mind, I know that if I do try my hardest, I'm not going to win, and then I don't have an excuse. So I'm giving you a peek inside of the depths of my soul, of my brokenness and my sin. Honestly, that's just so prideful. Like, gross, dude. Stop. And so I'm just being as like raw as I can with y'all. I don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't want to fail. I want to have an excuse for not giving it my all. And so I don't know. I that's something that I have been able to like say out loud. But I think recently, in this sales situation, again, I haven't just completely failed. I'm fine. Our business is doing well. I'm doing fine with my numbers and everything. But I just know that like I had more in the tank. And there's been a lot of times where I've had more in the tank and I just haven't left it all out there. And when I die one day, when people think about me, I want them to think about Hampton as someone that runs the race to win the prize. I want them to say, yeah, that guy left it all out there. He may not have always won. He may not have always been the best, but he tried as hard as he possibly could. I read a book called Grit and a book called Mindset. I've already referenced Mindset today. But in both the books, they give you tips on parenting. And they say for your kid, instead of praising their talent, you want to praise their effort. Instead of saying, you're so fast on the soccer field, they want to say, I love how hard you worked. And what that does is it encourages this mindset of working hard instead of just telling someone that they're good at something. And so as I'm preaching to myself here, maybe some of this is resonating with you. I'll give you a few tips to maybe fix some of this. So number one, just simply obedience to the verse above. You want to do everything with excellence. Do you not know that in a race, all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. So I want to be obedient. I want to run as hard as I possibly can. I want to lay my head down at night and say, hey, my identity and my value is not in the results that I've gotten. God is not opposed to effort. He's opposed to earning. I've heard my pastor say that a lot. So there's nothing wrong with giving all of your effort as long as you know that that isn't what earns your value or your salvation. And so I think there's times where I could put in more effort. So obedience to the verse above. Number two, this is pretty practical. Tricking yourself and setting a goal higher than it actually needs to be. And so if you need to make 75 cold calls a day on your sales job, we'll just make it a non-negotiable to make 100 a day. And then if at some point you fall short, you're still going to hit your goal. And so that's a practical thing that I wish I would have done, specifically like in this sales role. Hey, I've got to hit this certain number. Okay, well, I'm going to make sure that I hit that number 2 months early, and here's how I'm going to do it. And even if I fall short, I'll hit it on time. Didn't do that. I've done that in other ways before, something that I'm going to be doing more in the future. Beginning with the end in mind, it will be worth it. When I run with Charlie, I've talked about him already on this podcast. We are very good friends now. He's done some running coaching for me. He's a very good runner right now. When we're running and I'm struggling, he says, hey, you can rest when you're done. You can rest when you're done. And I think about that a lot. Like, how proud will I be if I give it my all? I can rest when I'm done. There's certain like running workouts that I do that in the moment I'm like, I want to quit. I want to quit. I want to quit. But then I think about laying my head down at night, and I think about the times when I have quit and not given it my all. And I have to look at myself in the mirror and say, you gave up today. And that sucks. And so beginning with the end in mind and saying, how am I going to feel tonight when I lay my head down, when I look myself in the mirror, when I brush my teeth? Am I going to say, hey, you gave it your all today? Good job. I'm proud of your effort. Or am I going to say you gave up because it got hard? What do I want my daughter to see? And I point because she's asleep right now. Like, I don't want her to see a dad that doesn't give it his all. I want her to see a dad that is okay with failure, that steps out of his comfort zone, that gives it his all. And I want her to do the same thing as well. And so beginning with the end in mind, and then accountability with others. You are so much more likely to do the thing that you said you were going to do if you tell someone you're going to do it and then you do it with somebody. I actually took a personality assessment recently that I'll talk more in depth about later, that says that I'm a team guy. I love being on a team. If I'm on a team, like in a workout thing or like a work thing, I'm far more likely to give it my all because I don't want to let other people down. But when it's just me, I feel like I'm more easily susceptible to giving up or failing. I want to share one thing with you from a book, Grit, that I read by Angela Duckworth. It's the Grit equation. It's talent times effort equals skill. So talent times effort gets you skill. So you have skill. Now it's skill times effort equals achievement. So what do we get from that? Effort counts twice. Talent times effort equals skill. Skill times effort equals achievement. Effort counts twice. So in a lot of areas of my life, I've got talent. I've got natural talent. And maybe I put in a little bit of effort, and that gives me some skill. So I have some skill. But a lot of times I stop there. But what if I take that skill and multiply that by more effort? Then you get achievement. Then you're in the 1%. Then you win. And so often I just like give up too early, and I'm just not proud of that. And so in the book Grit, there's a question. They talk about identity. And one of the questions that you can ask yourself is, who am I? What is this situation? What does someone like me do in this situation? So if I'm working out, if I'm running, who am I? What is this situation? What does someone like me do in this situation? Now, for me as a Christian, some of these answers are easy. Who am I? I'm a child of God. I know what happens in the end. My identity is not found in my performance. I can't earn anything, but I can give it my all. I can leave everything out there and glorify God in everything that I do. What is this situation? This is a situation where I have an opportunity to do something hard, where I have an opportunity to step out of my comfort zone, where I have an opportunity to glorify God in front of other people. What does someone like me do in this situation? Well, I'm going to honor God. I'm going to be obedient. I'm going to think less of myself and be open to failure and give it my all. I'm going to try as hard as I possibly can in school. I'm going to try as hard as I possibly can in my sales role. I'm going to try as hard as I possibly can in this workout. And I don't care if I fail because I'm not trying to earn anything. There's nothing to earn. Everything is complete. I've been bought by the blood of Jesus. And so I'm not trying to earn the approval of others. I'm not trying to make people like me. I'm trying to make disciples of all nations. Okay. And so, like, if I can answer those questions, then that's going to get me in the right mindset to actually give it my all. Now, for you, maybe you aren't a Christian, but think about this. Who am I? What is the situation? What does someone like me do in this situation? Regardless of where you stand spiritually, I can imagine that you want to be someone that leaves it all out there. I finish strong. I follow through. I work as hard as I possibly can. Those are things that I'm trying to tell myself, and I just wanted to be open with y'all today. As I am, I don't know how long I have to live, but maybe a third into my life. So far, I haven't done super well with finishing strong, and I want the last 2/3 plus of my life to be about someone who finishes well. And I hope that you can say the same thing about yourself. It's time for you and me to wake up and lead.